On the back of your folder is this page that talks about, this is from Mary Aaronworth and Vicki Vinton from The Power of Grammar, and she talks about 3 different ways of doing mini lessons, and we're, of course, applying them to grammar mini lessons. And so I will speak a bit to, since I have all the technology on, to the one I just did, and then I'll pass this along. So my attempt here was to make this a 2nd grade level inquiry lesson. What did you find? What did you notice? What purpose did it serve? So instead of me saying, today I'm going to teach you that researchers and writers of informational texts use adjectives to be more precise, to clarify, and to be accurate, I said, let's investigate how those authors use adjectives. And you then had to identify the adjectives, which I didn't have any doubt you could do, but then think about what purpose they served and then go to that overarching piece. So I've done, there's a book that I don't see, Practical Punctuation, it's at the end. There are lots of K2 mini lessons on punctuation there that are done as inquiry lessons, and I have done some of them with kids to say, okay, what does this kind of punctuation do? How does it change it if it were different punctuation? And I'm always amazed. I'm always a little worried, are they going to be able to do it? And then I'm amazed because, yes, they can. So thinking about your own teaching, turn to your neighbor and say, here's something that I tend to teach through inquiry. It doesn't have to be in writing, but just think about when in your teaching do you use inquiry?
Okay, thank you. And if you'll turn this way, thanks. So I'm going to talk about direct instruction, and the compound sentence mini lesson that I taught, I used this method. The students saw me do a think aloud. I looked at the text the summer my father was 10, and so I modeled looking at that text and taking something from it, and then teaching that to the students. So there really wasn't much inquiry during that time, nor apprenticeship. It was just, this is what I'm noticing, this is how it's helping my writing, now you try it. So that was the direct instruction. And yeah. All right, we'll just stand next to each other. All right.
All right. Now, so for apprenticeship, I just wanted to remind us that we have this bookmark because really, like it says at the very bottom, funny, the very bottom, these categories are loose ones, individual lessons and across these boundaries. And we also know that the work this week is really to be following the criteria of the mini lesson that we talked about. So the thing that I want to focus in on is that my lesson and Jen's lesson, now we're talking about the grammar lesson. Yes, we had to do an MAISA writing lesson first too. Yeah. But for me, I'm thinking, let's think about my grammar lesson yesterday where it was about writers use punctuation to create a pause. And for argument writing, we were pausing to insert a bit of information. So I wanted that grammar lesson, yes, it still had this kind of almost gradual release of responsibility model, but the part where I did the apprenticeship, mentoring ourselves to published writers, was in the teach, I did 2 things. We went to the first article on the elephants and the ivory, and you needed to read it really quick. It was quick. And then I wanted to think aloud what the author did. So I reread that, and I thought aloud this model of apprenticeship. But then I even wanted to release that. I wanted you to just glance through another article. Content was secondary. It was about you then thinking with your partner to apprentice yourself under that other op-ed author to say, okay, so they did it this way, they did it this way, it's the same way. Wow, okay, so my teacher actually is teaching me something that real people use. So dashes, okay. And look, I mean, a lot of op-ed authors write with dashes, and that must be like a thing that they do. And so this is actually useful. So that's how it was very similar. I mean, these things are just, nuances of difference, but hopefully specific ways of teaching and using the resources resonate with you based on your content and what you're doing with the grade level lessons.
So what questions might you have about those three types of teaching methods? And the expectation today is not that you try to do one of each. It's just, some information, kind of behind the scenes information to move us forward.